I am the contrarian, and this is my world.
Hi, this is Adrian Jones from Symantec. I'm here on The Contrarian with Rajiv, and I'm talking about the need for cybersecurity.
The amazing future, the digital technology frontier that we are about to confront, as we look at it every single day with rose-tinted glasses, we think it's all peachy and very beautiful. Digital India, the Internet of Things, online banking, apps, wearable, everything is perfect. But is it? Have you heard of identity theft? Do you know that every wearable you wear, the data that you generate, could go to 15 to 16 other people? Every single thing that you do on the net, online, or any device that has ever been on the internet can be hacked almost immediately. Well, there are two ways to look at it. One is it's actually true. The other is this fear-mongering at its best. Today, we're going to find out both sides of the story. So I'm going to give you about a minute to set stage. Are we really about, it sounds very melodramatic, the dire straits that we're supposed to be getting into. The more we look into the future of technology, it sounds even worse every single time. So are we in dire straits?
I'm not sure we're in dire straits, hopefully not yet anyway. I think that the landscape of security, and certainly has sort of proliferated over the last several years. Certainly last year, we saw an increase in cybersecurity attacks across the globe. We produce a report, the Internet Security Threat Report, and clearly when we look at that, 5 out of 6 large enterprises, large companies, were attacked last year in some shape or form. That's a 40% increase versus the year before. We saw over 300% increase in ransomware. You know, guys on the internet locking your computer, asking for $50 to unlock your computer. Not great. And so it's for up to companies like Symantec is how do we stop, prevent those threats? How do we detect those threats earlier, those patterns earlier, to help governments, customers, and obviously our end users decide what they do about the technology.
Okay, so let's just go into Digital India. Here we are on the threshold of saying that this could be the big game changer for India to suddenly become one of the most advanced countries with not much thought of the fact that we've been very poor with cybersecurity all through. We don't even have our laws, right? Today, an old school hacker can get away with a lot in India. Why is it this time worldwide, not just in India? This blind cult following to the next big thing with no thought about security.
Well, I think the awareness is improved. So I think in the last couple of years across the globe, it depends on the country you talk about, but certainly if you look at countries like the United States, for example, you know, this year President Obama launched a bill from $4 billion to $14 billion increase in cybersecurity. Every single government that we talk to around the globe is #1 topic today is cybersecurity. When you look at, India is a great example. 20% of the population here is on the internet. What happens when it gets to 50%? What happens when it gets to 70%? So I think for me, from what we see in the landscape today and what we talk to with customers and governments, it's first of all starts from an awareness perspective, from board of directors or from the senior levels of government. I think the awareness is improving.
In our daily lives, what are we not aware of that we do? Because we all use a multitude of technology, devices, services, apps. Like you said, all of us are on the internet and most of us are moving to it. Can you just take me through a day where we may not be aware of what all could be happening with our newfound love and the seduction of technology?
Great example actually is, so I've got 3 kids, all teenagers. They download as many applications on the web as they possibly can or on their iPhone every day because they're free. And so 65% of the world's population today download applications that are free, but what they don't realize is their privacy of data is going everywhere on the internet. And obviously the cyber sort of terrorism and criminals that we see out there today are very good at using what we now call trusted sources. So if you get an email from me, Rajiv, you probably think it's an email from Adrian, and that's great. You may open that email, but it may not be. It may be from a phishing attacks, what we call phishing attacks, in giving sort of information that you're giving information away, or they're trying to steal information from you. And so this really is, this isn't a one sort of year or 2 or 3 years. This is probably a journey over the next 5 to 10 years that we have to educate our younger population all the way through to the older generation around how security is becoming a bigger issue.
There is a thought all across the world that every single thing anybody can do about cybersecurity is almost nullified and of no use because the hacker community is always going to be 2 steps ahead. At one time, hacking used to be chest thumping, right? At another time, companies like, or organizations like Anonymous and others were doing it because they thought they were going to change the world, or at least that's what they said they're going to be doing. But today it's all about money. A hacking community can actually target a very large corporate and say, we're going to do this to you unless you pay up, right? We'll actually get your database out. And many have fallen for that. Many have, I don't know if it's really true or not, many have paid, right? So how is it that we talk about knowledge, empowering a person, having the education to know that this could happen to you, when whatever we may do, the hacking community will be 2 or 3 steps ahead?
Well, hopefully they're not 2 or 3 steps ahead. Our job is to make sure we're 2 or 3 steps ahead of them. We look at, as I mentioned earlier, massive amounts of data, right? So we look at 4 trillion lines of information every single day, and we have to process that about 200,000 lines every second. Now, sounds like a lot of data, but the reality is when you're looking, we have the largest global civilian intelligence platform network on the planet today. And so when we're looking at all of this data, we have to decipher that data and make sense of that data for customers, for end users very quickly. The issue really is back to awareness for the population. How do we create the awareness there? But we're doing a lot of work to prevent hackers from hacking in systems. And I would say at Symantec, we are hopefully 2 or 3 steps ahead of those hackers that we see. The problem you've got is when you see 1 million attacks per day of different malware. Last year there was 317 million new pieces of malware created. So that's roughly 1 million a day. So it's hard to keep up on the signatures that you need to develop to stop companies getting hacked, etc. But we're doing a lot of work. We're hiring more people. We're increasing our headcount in all of these facilities that we have, what we call operation centers, to look at that and drive a different answer for customers. And so we're trying to make sure we prevent, sort of detect early and then really prevent some of these attacks and then remediate some of these attacks. But I would say we have to stay advanced in investing in R&D, in innovation, in technology much sooner to combat what we see from the hackers out there.
But would the number of corporates that you said, for instance, you said 40% or 50% more corporates were hit this year than last year.
Correct.
So thus, if you were a step or 2 ahead, wouldn't this number have dropped by now rather than increasing every single year?
Well, we'd like to protect every company and every government on the planet. We don't do that today. We'd love to be able to do that. But I think what we do protect, and with our advanced threat protection technology for us, is we can see what's happening from these patterns, which means we know there's an attack imminent. There was a subway last year, I won't tell you which country it's in, but a subway that we knew was going to get hacked at 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. We knew what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, and what they were going to do. We prevented that attack. The attack came, we got rid of those hackers, and the trains kept on moving. That's, for us, what we do. And so that's, I think, the issue.
So in a world which to many is completely unfamiliar now because of the new things that we do, not knowing the repercussion of what that can lead to, what would you say are the 1 or 2 things that are really troubling you right now, could be the greatest threats if not controlled? I mean, we hear about zero-day attacks, we hear about phishing, we hear about the fact that your data that is sent out willingly by us is sold out to others. We've heard of hackers that can actually come into a database. Today we use cloud as if there is absolutely nothing on earth that can actually hack into a cloud. This thing, we use a Dropbox and we use an incredible amount of apps that actually use all of that. What's the 1 or 2 greatest fears you actually live with every single day?
Well, we probably have more than 1 or 2 because we see a lot of different things in our landscape. I think, it's actually not the hackers for us. So, there's internal threats in companies, there's external threats. We're trying to sort of protect the whole landscape from threats that we see and information, protect the information inside of companies. For us, it's a proliferation of different things that we see. The biggest thing for me is we've got to get, as I said at the very beginning, education and awareness to boards of governance, to CEOs, to governments around the issue of cybersecurity, because it is only going to get worse, not better, is really our issue, is how we educate more from consumer all the way to larger companies. It's not about the threats that we see. We think we have enough technology we're building to develop to continue to get rid of the hackers that we see. It's really around education and awareness and making sure the investments are there from governments and customers alike to go protect themselves. That's probably the thing that we worry more about, is that they're not really educated enough on that. People know it's an issue. Whether they act on that issue is really is our issue today, is creating that awareness.
All right. Here we are on the threshold of doing some very incredible things. Cars that don't need drivers, right? We're talking about dramatic changes in smart cities. We're talking about transportation that is actually smart. We're talking about many different things like the Internet of Things, where 100 billion sensors will talk to each other in a few years with no human intervention. Is there thought within the entire technology community, as you said, it's only going to get worse and not better? Maybe we could slow down a little?
My personal view is I'd love to slow down. I think the technology changes too quick. I'm probably the only person in my company that doesn't text as many people as my next colleague. I would rather pick up the phone still and talk to somebody. My kids don't know what I'm doing when I actually pick up the phone and call United Airlines to understand when I want to speak to somebody about a flight. They understand that they can find that in 2 seconds. So I think the generation has changed so much that we're never going to be able to slow down.
So let's talk about what is it that we can do, and let's try and focus on exactly where we are. So Digital India is of course the big dream. Smart cities, many of them are what we're all looking forward to. What exactly is it that can be done right now that can protect us now and into the future?
We started this initiative actually about a year ago, talking to the Indian government. They asked us to train 500,000 engineers, basically, and so we started with 50,000, so we can continue to train the trainer. That awareness is a big deal because we need cybersecurity analysts. It takes us around 6 to 8 months to train our own analysts, and we have about 400 security analysts around the globe today, and we're continuing to hire more and more of those. But it takes a long time to get somebody really trained on cybersecurity. It even goes back even further than that. It goes back to colleges, schools. How do you get that into a curriculum in a university versus just being a chemical engineer or biochemical engineering? How does cybersecurity become a part of the curriculum in a university today? Because if it really is going to get more and more difficult with the connected world that we live in, universities, colleges, and schools need to start educating right back in that area.
So we're running out of time, so here's my last and final question. Sure. This needs you to fish out your crystal ball now, okay? Look deep into it and tell me, with everything that you just described right now, this could be called the start, right? 5 years from now, if all of what you're trying to do right now works out, would you then be able to actually, will we reach a time where you'll be able to come onto a stage and say, okay, we're all done, the world is secure, our job's done?
I actually don't think it'll ever happen. I think that we're going to be in a world where we continue to look at this threat landscape. As I said earlier, it's going to get worse. I think that's the truth. I think that because you mentioned earlier, we're not slowing down in technology. So with the increase in technology, we have to find better ways to combat that. We have to find better ways as a company to help the world in making sure it's a safe and secure place.
Well, that is that then. The world can never ever be completely secure, but that's the knowledge, the education, the information that we all must have. I will end exactly the way I started, and that is with knowledge about your daily life. Every single thing that you do that technology touches has a ripple effect. Very important for all of us to know it. Will the world be completely secure one day? Well, we've got the answer to that. But getting you that information, that knowledge of what you do every day and how it can affect you, that's our job. I'll see you next week right here on The Contrarian.
I am the contrarian, and this is my world.